The sun rises over a dusty plain on September 3rd, 1260, in the narrow gorge of Anjalut, where two forces lock eyes across the sand. One side has never tasted defeat in 6 decades of relentless conquest. The other stares death in the face, fully aware their survival hangs by a thread. For generations, the Mongol hordes have swept across continents like a wildfire, obliterating kingdoms, erasing civilizations, and stacking human remains into grotesque monuments that blot the horizon. Their trail of destruction spans from the Pacific shores of Asia to the gates of Hungary, claiming countless lives and redrawing maps with blood. Yet on this fateful morning, an unprecedented shift looms, one that will redirect the trajectory of global power for centuries. Commanding the Mongols stands Kitbuka, a battle-hardened Nestorian Christian devoted to the Ilkhanate's cause. Fresh from seizing ancient strongholds like Aleppo and Damascus in a blitz that left the Levant reeling, his troops, hardened by triumph after triumph, ride with the arrogance of invincibility. Opposing them are the Mamluk forces of Egypt, an elite cadre of warriors forged from hardship, young boys ripped from their homelands in the steppes or Caucasus, sold into servitude, and molded into lethal instruments of combat under rigorous discipline. At their helm is Sultan Qutuz, a figure who rose from obscurity in the Cairo barracks just a few years prior to claim the throne through cunning and resolve. Now he confronts an ultimatum delivered by Mongol envoys: yield immediately, or suffer the fate of Baghdad, where the Caliphate's jewel was reduced to rubble in 1258. Its population of nearly 1 million slaughtered in a frenzy that turned the Tigris black with ink from drowned libraries and crimson with gore for weeks. Qutuz's response defies all precedent. Rather than capitulate or negotiate, he orders the execution of the messengers and displays their severed heads atop Cairo's fortifications as a brazen declaration of defiance. This act ignites an all-out confrontation against an adversary that has never known reversal. By 1260, the Mongol domain encompasses the most expansive contiguous territory ever assembled, covering roughly 13 million square miles, from the Korean peninsula westward to the Carpathians, encompassing a fifth of the planet's habitable land, and still expanding under the Yuan dynasty's ambit. Their dominance stems not merely from savagery, but from unparalleled mobility and precision. Mongol ponies, bred for endurance, cover up to 80 kilometers daily across varied terrain, while their mounted archers unleash volleys with deadly accuracy at full gallop, striking targets no larger than a fist from over 90 meters away. Psychological warfare amplifies their edge. Cities receive stark choices: submit and endure subjugation, or resist and face annihilation so thorough that survivors are rare. The sack of Baghdad exemplified this terror. The Abbasid capital, cradle of intellectual giants where algebra emerged, hospitals pioneered medical ethics, and Greek classics were safeguarded in the Beit al-Hikmah, was systematically dismantled. Scrolls flooded the river until its waters darkened permanently, and the streets became impassable carpets of corpses, as chroniclers like Ibn al-Athir lamented in harrowing detail. Yet the Mamluks harbor a unique advantage that even instills unease in Mongol ranks. Each fighter traces origins to childhood enslavement, often from Kipchak, Turkic, or Circassian stock, purchased in bustling markets, severed from kin, and subjected to an unforgiving regimen from age 8 or younger. They master an array of weaponry: curved sabers, lances, composite bows, and iron flails, while absorbing strategy, multilingual diplomacy, and Islamic jurisprudence. Freedom comes only after proving unwavering allegiance, transforming them into a cohesive brotherhood bound by shared ordeal and faith rather than bloodlines. Among them shines Baibars, Qutuz's brilliant tactician, a former slave whose ingenuity devises a gambit to exploit Mongol habits. Observing their advance southward through the Levant with around 20,000 riders, Baibars notes their predictable pattern. A vanguard detachment probes ahead, drawing out foes before the bulk strikes decisively. This has felled empires repeatedly, as panic fractures enemy cohesion. Baibars proposes inverting the approach, luring the scouts into a trap. Qutuz endorses it, but insists on a pivotal alteration: he will command from the front lines, eschewing the safety of distant oversight, typical for rulers. His counselors decry the risk, arguing monarchs orchestrate rather than endanger themselves. But Qutuz recognizes the morale imperative. His warriors, facing oblivion, must witness their sultan's commitment to shared peril in this untested ploy. Dawn breaks cool over Ain Jalut's confining basin on that pivotal day in 1260, as anticipated. Mongol outriders, perhaps 1,000 swift cavalry, crest the horizon, spotting a modest Mamluk contingent of roughly 500 horsemen arrayed invitingly. Confident in superiority, they loose a storm of shafts that blots the sky and charge with earth-shaking momentum. The Mamluks feign disarray, wheeling away in apparent flight, a ruse that aligns perfectly with Mongol expectations, always crumble initially. Kitbuka, committing the primary host upon hearing the clash echo through the defile, urges his legions forward without hesitation. The ravines, steep flanks, obscuring full visibility and constricting movement into a vulnerable choke point. Caution might dictate reconnaissance or delay, but 6 decades of unbroken success breed overconfidence. Why deviate from a formula that has conquered continents? The Mongol column surges inward like a river funneling through a gorge. 20,000 elite combatants, anticipating swift plunder en route to Cairo's riches. Then, a cacophony erupts, blasts from myriad ram's horns reverberating from ridgelines, rearward positions, and the path ahead. From concealed ditches, behind boulders, and atop escarpments, emerge Mamluk reinforcements, swelling to an estimated 30,000, encircling the invaders in a masterful envelopment. For the first instance in Mongol annals, their forces are ensnared, mobility neutralized by terrain and numbers. Undeterred, they coalesce into defensive formations, relying on proven resilience against odds. Kitbuka directs a breakout southward toward open flats, where velocity and ranged firepower could reclaim initiative. The push commences ferociously, shafts piercing ranks, chargers smashing barriers, and briefly threatens rupture. In this critical juncture, Qutuz discards his helm, casting it aside, and bellows a rallying cry invoking divine aid for the faith. Wa is Alama. His voice carries across the fray, visible to his troops as he plunges into the melee, wounded yet unyielding alongside them. The sight galvanizes the Mamluks. These ex-captives, honed into peerless combatants, unleash a ferocity born of desperation and unity, overwhelming the trapped foe. The engagement devolves into close quarters, carnage, but reversal favors the defenders' Mongol precision, falters amid the crush. Kitbuka battles valiantly, felling scores with his blade until encircled and slain. His final words, a defiant roar, echoing his unbowed spirit. As dusk falls on September 3, 1260, the Mongol contingent lies largely annihilated, with mere hundreds fleeing to relay the catastrophe. The remainder feeds scavengers amid the arid wastes. Beyond tactical triumph, the outcome shatters an aura of divine inevitability cultivated over generations. Word disseminates rapidly, igniting optimism. From the Nile to the Euphrates, subjugated peoples realize the juggernaut possesses vulnerabilities. In the distant steppes, Ilkhan Hulagu learns of the rout months later, prompting immediate cessation of southwestern campaigns. Assets pivot to internal consolidation and eastern fronts. The Mamluks capitalize astutely, reclaiming Syrian and Palestinian holdings in subsequent operations. Qutuz's tenure ends abruptly in assassination by rivals, a stark illustration of intrigues plaguing medieval courts. Yet Baibars ascends, sustaining momentum against Ilkhanid remnants and Crusader enclaves alike. By the dawn of the 14th century, Mongol cohesion fractures into warring khanates, internal strife supplanting outward aggression. Mamluk dominion endures over 2 centuries, fostering a golden era of patronage in scholarship, astronomy, and grand architecture. Cairo evolves into a cosmopolitan hub whose academies safeguard and advance knowledge, indirectly seeding Europe's intellectual rebirth. Absent Qutuz's audacious stand remaining fortified in the capital, heeding pleas for parley, or delegating peril, the Islamic heartland might have crumbled, altering cultural trajectories profoundly. Angelut embodies resilience. No dominion, however colossal, withstands determined opposition rooted in conviction and homeland defense. Later, Mongol encounters with analogous ambushes breed prudence, concluding an epoch of unchecked dominion. Presently, Angelut's serene vale in the Palestinian territories bears scant trace of its epochal. Klashno grand memorials or interpretive plaques guide passersby. Yet beneath their feet lies the ground where enslaved youths, transformed into indomitable defenders, demonstrated that even history's most formidable colossus could be humbled. In that revelation resides the power to reshape destinies.